On June 15, 1991, Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines erupted in one of the most powerful volcanic explosions of the 20th century. The eruption sent massive plumes of ash into the atmosphere, triggered deadly mudflows, and caused widespread devastation across the island of Luzon. Despite the scale of the disaster, the event is also remembered as a triumph of disaster preparedness and collaboration, as timely evacuations saved thousands of lives. This narrative explores the events leading up to the eruption, the immediate impact, and the long-term consequences of the Mount Pinatubo disaster.
Mount Pinatubo, located on the island of Luzon in the Philippines, was a relatively obscure volcano before its catastrophic eruption in 1991. Dormant for over 600 years, the volcano was largely overlooked, with no significant activity recorded in recent history. However, the region surrounding Mount Pinatubo was home to thousands of people, including members of the Ida indigenous community, as well as several large U.S. military bases, including Clark Air Base and Subic Bay Naval Station. In March 1991, signs of volcanic activity began to emerge at Mount Pinatubo. Earthquakes were detected in the area, and steam and sulfur dioxide emissions indicated that magma was rising toward the surface. Scientists from the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology (PHIVOLCS), along with experts from the United States Geological Survey (USGS), began monitoring the volcano closely, aware that a major eruption could have catastrophic consequences for the densely populated region.
As Mount Pinatubo's activity intensified, scientists faced the daunting task of predicting the scale and timing of a potential eruption. By early June, the volcano was showing signs of imminent eruption, with ash explosions and lava domes forming in the crater. Based on the increasing signs of activity, PHIVOLCS and USGS issued warnings and recommended the evacuation of tens of thousands of people living within a 20-kilometer radius of the volcano. The evacuation process was complex and challenging, involving the coordination of local and national government agencies, the military, and international partners. Many of the people living near the volcano, particularly members of the Ida community, were reluctant to leave their homes and ancestral lands. However, the warnings from scientists and officials were clear: the risk of staying outweighed the cost of leaving. On June 12, 1991, a series of powerful eruptions signaled the beginning of the main eruptive phase. Over the next 3 days, the intensity of the eruptions increased, culminating in a cataclysmic explosion on June 15. The eruption column reached more than 40 kilometers into the atmosphere, spreading ash across the region and beyond. The force of the explosion ejected vast amounts of volcanic material, including pumice and ash, which blanketed the surrounding areas. Compounding the disaster was the arrival of Typhoon Yunya, which brought heavy rains that mixed with the volcanic ash to create deadly mudflows, known as lahars. These lahars swept through rivers and valleys, destroying homes, infrastructure, and agricultural land. The combination of the eruption and the typhoon created a disaster of unprecedented scale, affecting millions of people.
The eruption of Mount Pinatubo had immediate and devastating consequences for the region. Entire villages were buried under ash and mud, and many buildings collapsed under the weight of the ashfall. The U.S. military bases at Clark Air Base and Subic Bay Naval Station were heavily damaged, leading to the eventual withdrawal of American forces from the Philippines. The agricultural sector was also severely impacted, with thousands of hectares of farmland rendered unusable due to the thick layer of ash. Despite the widespread destruction, the evacuation efforts were largely successful in preventing a much higher death toll. Approximately 58,000 people were evacuated before the eruption, and while 847 people lost their lives, many due to collapsing roofs and lahars. The toll could have been far worse had the warnings not been heeded. The aftermath of the eruption presented significant challenges for the affected communities. Thousands of people were displaced, their homes and livelihoods destroyed. The lahars continued to pose a threat for years after the eruption, as seasonal rains remobilized the volcanic material, causing repeated flooding and mud flows. The displaced populations faced the daunting task of rebuilding their lives in the face of ongoing uncertainty and instability.
The eruption of Mount Pinatubo had far-reaching consequences, not only for the Philippines but for the entire world. The massive amount of volcanic ash and gases ejected into the atmosphere had a temporary cooling effect on global temperatures, with sulfur dioxide particles reflecting sunlight away from the Earth. This led to a decrease in global temperatures by about 0.5 degrees Celsius over the following years, demonstrating the far-reaching impact of such a powerful volcanic event. In the Philippines, the eruption highlighted the importance of disaster preparedness and the value of scientific collaboration. The successful evacuation of tens of thousands of people was a testament to the efforts of PHIVOLCS, USGS, and other agencies involved in monitoring the volcano and communicating the risks to the public. The experience gained from Mount Pinatubo has since informed disaster response strategies both in the Philippines and around the world. The disaster also led to significant changes in the way communities and governments approach volcanic hazards. In the Philippines, efforts were made to improve infrastructure, strengthen early warning systems, and educate the public about the risks of living near active volcanoes. The eruption underscored the need for ongoing vigilance and preparedness, as the country remains vulnerable to future volcanic activity. Internationally, the Mount Pinatubo eruption served as a reminder of the need for global cooperation in the face of natural disasters. The response to the eruption involved the coordinated efforts of multiple countries, demonstrating the importance of sharing knowledge, resources, and expertise to mitigate the impact of such events. In the years following the eruption, the region around Mount Pinatubo began to recover. The landscape, once covered in ash and mud, slowly returned to life as vegetation regrew and communities rebuilt. The eruption site itself has become a place of scientific interest and tourism, with the caldera lake that formed after the eruption now attracting visitors from around the world.
The eruption of Mount Pinatubo in 1991 was a catastrophic event that had a profound impact on the Philippines and the global community. The disaster highlighted the power of nature and the importance of preparedness, as timely evacuations saved thousands of lives. As we reflect on the events of Mount Pinatubo, we are reminded of the need for continued vigilance, scientific collaboration, and community resilience in the face of natural disasters. The legacy of Mount Pinatubo endures in the lessons learned and the ongoing efforts to protect lives and livelihoods from the threats posed by volcanic activity.